Send me that. I wish I had a screenshot. I could grab it, but I'm not sure how to do that on the iPod, and I don't want to lose you in the process.
There you go. We are live. It's what time is it? It's 8:46. We're a little bit late. Sorry if you've been waiting around for this interview. We have to, overcome technical difficulties sometimes to get into these things, especially when you do these things from one half of the world to the other. But I'm joined by Billy Sherwood for My Music today. And Billy, where are you coming from?
Hello, sorry to be late. I'm in California.
There you go.
Yeah.
That just explains it, doesn't it?
Right. We provide for traffic as a lateness, and these things happen.
Yeah. A lovely array of bass guitars in the background.
Yes, I wish they were on the road right now in my case, but
oh gosh, yes. Absolutely. What are you favoring there as a
my favorite one is this I endorsed Spectre for years. But, this is my main one, which is really nice. It's a beautiful Spectre bass. But if you notice, the inlays are all like these fish running up and down the neck, you see.
Yeah.
So
yeah, almost like a fish out of water.
Yeah, it's kind of
to quote an album.
Yeah, nice way to honor Chris and still play Spectres. So
yeah, very nice indeed. Very nice.
Of course, I got a signature Rickenbacker that Chris gave me years ago when that thing was produced, and then Tobias and Fender and a couple of other Rickies that I have, and so they should be in a case somewhere.
They should be over the Atlantic somewhere.
Right.
Come on, let's get that happening. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yes, we are.
We've got vaccines rolling out. It's slowly but surely happening. It's frustrating all of us, I suppose, because we just wish it was happening at 5 times the speed.
We're closer to the end than we are the beginning, which is a good sign. Coming up as we're about to celebrate a year anniversary of this craziness. So.
Yeah. And we're here to talk about Arc of Life, which is your new project. Okay. Great album. Thanks for letting me listen to it ahead of time, which is great. In terms of let's go with the cover first, and the whole concept of Arc of Life. I looked at the cover and I thought, this is about coming out of a dark hole. Anyway,
just so happens. Well, the album was written between 2017 by John and myself in the back of a Yes tour bus when we were on the road.
Right.
And we put it together that way, and then we kind of started thinking bands, so we got Jay and Jimmy and Dave involved. And then as things proceed, it's like time to think of a cover. And at that point, we had gone so far on the journey from where we started to where COVID was on the horizon at that point that we were starting to think about the covers stuff. And I don't know, I was just sitting around one day and had this vision of like looking outside of a dark from inside of a very dark cave and seeing that light of hope and an amazing place to be. And so I kind of sketched it out on a piece of paper and sent it into the management and said, what do you think of this concept? Is there someone who can flesh it out? And obviously, they just nailed it because it's beautiful. I want to be there.
So it is quite sort of aspirational and kind of partly born by this pandemic as well, in terms of
the cover for sure, in terms of like a thought and what I was thinking and an idea, but the music was all written and in place before it ever kicked in. But ironically, it serves some of the concepts that we're living with now, serve in the songs. With Lockdown and some of the other songs, Until Further Notice and these things. So.
Sure. Yeah. Now, in terms of styles and things that people can hear on this, obviously there's a nod to Yes,
right?
In terms of some of the style, but at the same time, it's got its own life. I'd say it's quite poppy in parts.
Yeah, well, it's poppy in parts and super proggy in other parts.
Yeah.
I think that's the hybrid, which I liked playing with on this record, and I know John was too, is the idea that we could do something simple and also bring a level of complexity to it, in arranging. And, like for instance, a song like You Make It Real, when you listen to it on impact, it's a pretty simple little tune. But when you start listening to what's really going on underneath there to make that simple tune happen,
nice harmonies,
playing the bass compositions and the guitar chords, and so there's some tricks in there that bring it back to that, sort of proggy lane. I think as the record progresses, you start to flower and it starts to open up into a much more proggy thing by the time it's done. But that hybrid, I think, is cool. I mean, I'm a fan of melody and vocal hooks and harmonies, and so when we're sitting around working on vocals and we're referring to the Beach Boys in certain areas for that idea, or Take Six for another.
Do you know, I'm glad you mentioned the Beach Boys, because when you mentioned that song, those harmonies, I think of the Beach Boys. Because
well, yeah, I mean, those guys were so great at it, and they brought such a uniqueness to it, and to be able to work with John on that level where we can really take advantage of the two singer thing. It was just, it sort of lent itself to this style and this format of being a little simpler on its face, but underneath it, it's quite complex,
there. Yeah, it's not something that anyone's just going to be able to pick up a guitar and play.
I'll teach them to.
It may take a while if you're a beginner. Yeah. So that's great. And Just in Sight was the second single, and obviously that's got obviously more of a proggy sound to it. Immediately.
Yeah, it comes right out of the gate with that weird guitar thing that's kind of startling.
Yeah, what is that sound that he's got there?
It's just Jimmy doing his thing with some raunchy amplifier, that he's cranking in his pad and miking up,
I love that.
He gets great tones and an attitude about everything he plays is great. But yeah, it starts off kind of quirky and weird, almost to me in a way like a Gentle Giant thing would hit you. It's just, something peculiar. But then it kind of straightens itself out, and then it takes more twists back into peculiar. So again, that's that thing about trying to find the simplicity, but then switch it up and keep throwing curveballs at it just to make it interesting. And that was one of the things we wanted to make sure we were doing along the way. I think Just in Sight is like a good example of that, because within that one simple little tune, there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
How the melodies and the hooks remain simple enough to grasp on impact,
And you said just as we came in, because you were having fun getting on with the iPad, that you're not a technical person, but there's a song with a bit of a nod to technology on this album, which is the Talking to Siri one. Which who wrote the words for that?
I kind of came up with most of that after a Yes show somewhere over there in the UK or Europe on one of the tours back then. I had been enjoying myself in hospitality a bit before I got home to the hotel. And when I got home, I was a little like, I need to wake up at 7:30. Siri, can you please set my alarm for 7:30? And she said, your alarm is set. And I said, thank you. And she said, you're welcome. And so I started not letting go of this banter. It was like, who's going to get the last word,
Yeah.
And eventually kind of started thinking, well, this is bizarre. I'm sitting here talking on my phone. And I started asking it questions and asked it, do you dream? And it said electric sheep, but only sometimes, which was like, okay. And then I said, do you love? And it said, who, me? It kind of asked me, who, me?
Yeah.
And it's kind of right around there that I was like, wow, you know what? This is a song there. And I started sitting down and just formulating lyrics right there. And then the next day I took it over to John and said, listen to what happened last
okay. John, I'm going to sell this to you now, but I've just written a song about talking to a box.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because then we crafted it into a thing where it's kind of about technology, and it's also about, the person who falls in love with their AI, because that's their companion, and they're in their home alone. There's no one there. They're talking to their AI, this love affair going on. So it's got multiple meanings to it. It was kind of cool.
But again, almost kind of prophetic in the way that we've all ended up
speaking
to AI a lot more over the last few months.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you feel about? I actually have a background in AI as well. So,
well, I've always been fascinated with the concept of where AI and robotics is going, probably because I've been a Star Wars fan since the day it was released and never let go of that idea that that's where we're heading in terms of droids and technology. And we are. It's kind of weird. We're heading that way, probably because of the pop culture leads the way in that way.
Yep.
But along the way, it's both extremely liberating and amazing, and it's kind of frightening as hell at the same time. So to that end, I made a record called Citizen, and I wrote a song called Sophia, which is about this AI robot in Saudi Arabia that they made the first legal citizen of a country. And
mad.
So
just mental.
Like, wow. And there, it's in that song, it's even deeper in terms of because now the face is a woman, and so this person falling in love with this thing, and the robot really looking back at the human, going, "You're just getting in my way." We're going the way. So it's a scary yet amazingly fascinating sort of topic to me.
And I think that a lot of people actually look at things like that and think that that's extreme, and that actually there's no way that you could fall in love with a robot, etc. Right. But on a day-to-day basis, so many people are falling in love with people on the other side of the world who they've never met through a screen or through technology.
Yeah.
And in a way, you think,
I'm actually working on I'm in the final stages of another solo album of mine that I'm going to put out called Pushing Into the Wind. And there's a song called Love Remains Real on there, which is about exactly what you're talking about, which is these people who've never seen each other in person, never touched, never met, never hugged, kissed, nothing, but they're just totally have the love remains as real as if you were there in person.
Yeah.
I suppose that comes back to the human factor of who we are in terms of like really in here, which, more than the physical, which has a positive sort of aspect to it when you think of it that way. But it is bizarre nonetheless, and it is happening all the time. It's great.
Yeah. And of course, as you said, you'd love to get this out on the road.
Yes.
Do you see a relatively big tour for this, or will Yes Duties resume at some stage?
Well, the good news is we're managed by the same company who manages Yes and Asia, which I'm kind of a member of all three of those.
Yeah, you busy bee.
So that makes it easy for them to calculate the calendar and look at things and get things going. Yes is the mothership. It's been around for 52 years. You can't. There's nothing that's going to impact that trajectory. And we are certainly committed to Yes, John and I and Jay as well. So that's a not even on the radar as to when that's ready to sail, that ship sails. That said, Arc of Life moves in a different lane, and it's not a project, it's a band. We are committed to doing it, and we certainly want to get out on the road as soon as there's a road to get out on. And I'm sure everyone's feeling that. It's just a matter of how are these levels going to come back? Are you going to be able to play a 10,000 seater, or is it going to start at 1,000? We have to see where it goes and how that moves. But it's definitely something.
100 people in a pub would do at the moment, wouldn't it?
I'd take a guy with an acoustic guitar at Starbucks at this point and feel like something's returning to normal, because this is crazy.
Well, that would be an exciting gig.
I mean, do you remember what it was like to sit in a movie theater? It's like all the little things we took for granted are now like epic and missing in people's lives. And I think, the good news is, as we talked about earlier, we are seeing that tunnel. We are getting through it. We're seeing the end. And when it does come, it's going to look like Black Friday at a Walmart. Everyone's going to be racing towards that entertainment. And
well, I think it's quite interesting that everybody seemed to have that kind of same vision at the same time, because you produced this. One of my favorite bands, Marillion, suddenly put out their tour schedule for the end of the year and called it end of the tunnel at the end of the light, or light at the end of the tunnel. That's it.
That's
Tour.
great.
Yeah, and you just think everybody's sitting there that's a musician thinking the same thing. They're just thinking, how do we get out of this?
It's going to be crazy, but it's going to be a very liberating feeling, not only for the musicians who have been just completely derailed, and that's a big industry when you think about it, like just like the cruise ship industry, which we do that cruise every year. There's just the pockets of entertainment you'll find everywhere that have been just completely derailed. I mean, that's going to come back with a vengeance, and I think even though it's going to be a slow build to it, people are just dying to, as we said, just go sit and watch someone play an instrument in front of us and be able to go, that was great.
I suppose if we can take one good thing out of all of this, is that there's been some amazing music produced in the last year.
Yeah, well,
people have had time.
Well, yeah, not only that, but most artists I know tend to work best when things are getting darker and kind of there's some pressure involved in life, and that's when you really start producing some pretty crazy stuff. And there has been some unique music come out, and continues to, I'm sure, as we crest this thing and go. But it's just kind of funny that Arc of Life really wasn't created of that. The illusion that is that it was, because of the nature of the songs and the cover. But we were done with the record long before COVID kicked in. And it was just a matter of, like, when it kicked in, the shockwave is what sort of slowed us down from what we were doing, and that's what so now we're being released now.
That's kind of sort of typical of a lot of music, though, in a way, isn't it? I mean, a lot of music's written by a band or by an artist about one particular thing, but it then gets its own life from what's going on in life. And
it does, and I think lyrics have a funny way of doing that, where if you craft them correctly about whatever subject you're talking about, without being blatant and IDing a particular time, era, etc., that it fits over a lot of different parts of people's lives.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a strange thing.
Yeah, I mean, you must have experienced that over the years, where people have said, "This song means so much to me about this," or we had this at our wedding, or we had this at my dad's funeral, or what, and you think, well, I'd never think that it was going to be used for that, but then you hear the stories, and then it kind of makes sense.
It's that dual meaning stuff to people, I mean, for instance, on Arc of Life, the song "Until Further Notice," when you listen to it now, it seems kind of obvious what it would be about. You know what I mean? But the reality is that lyric, most of it came from an experience. I was, just going through some dark stuff personally at that point, and was kind of just unavailable to friends and whatnot. And I could get calls and say, "Where are you?" And then, I would jokingly say, "I'm out until further notice."
Further notice. Gone fishing.
It's that idea of just checking out mentally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really more about losing your mind and going crazy a little bit too in the process, in La La Land, as the lyrics say. Yeah. But it totally relates to what we're in now for anyone, because we're just all on hold until further notice.
I know, and the whole mental health piece has been
that too.
So important to keep people on a level.
I mean, when this kicked in, right early March, we started getting an indication, because we had to cancel our cruise. Which was major and was a real bummer, but obviously we hadn't seen the flame that was coming on the level that we saw it burning over the last year here. But that indication just spoke to like a sort of moment, and then when we started canceling other tours, it was kind of obvious we're in this, and just everyone dealing with that isolation and whatnot. It's just it's a heavy burden on people. We're not, as humans, conditioned to live this way. No,
we're certainly not. But we're what's great is we're all going. We're all getting through it together, and that we've seen some amazing humanity through all of this period as well, in terms of people coming together, like they haven't for years. So
it's interesting because it's funny how your mind can connect things and work in ways. Because I was watching a clip on Facebook of some earthquake footage that someone happened to post, and no one's hurt in this video, but check this out. This is this earthquake, and there's just 6 people sitting in a restaurant. All hell breaks loose. Their plates are all over. It looks like an Irwin Allen movie. It's crazy. But the point being, when it was done and the earthquake was gone, the first thing people did was reach over and touch each other on the back to make sure everyone was okay, and helping people up and hanging on to them as they walk out. And I thought, man, that human contact is just so embedded in us to make sure that our people are good and our loved ones and our neighbors are safe. Living without that now for so long is just so bizarre than just general pat on the back, of a friend or whatnot. It's just, now it's all air fist bumps and stuff. Just bizarre to me. But hopefully as we move forward and we get around this major corner, we can return to our human nature, so to speak.
Well, good. And this is such a positive album. Actually, it's quite an uplifting album. I mean, there are dark moments to it, but actually, overall, I think it's quite an uplifting album. And it's frighteningly catchy and poignant. So if people are listening to it,
I worry about that.
Do you?
Well, no, I'm joking, but
I wouldn't.
There's a sort of a progness about me because I'm in the genre deep, obviously, always have been. That it's like, if it's not 45 minutes and it's too catchy, that's not progressive rock anymore. So,
okay.
The reality, I think it's the adventure of the music is what makes things progressive.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring that back because actually, I'm going to ask a question to finish on as well, because it's one of the questions I've always wanted to ask you.
Sure.
Which is, I mean, you say that about catchiness and prog, but the first time I ever heard Roundabout by Yes, that song just stuck in my head for forever, right?
Well, yeah, but it's a funny thing for me, and I guess maybe this is why I have that different view of things, because of how I came into prog. I was born of musician parents, and my brother was a musician 5 years older than me, with his friend Jimmy Hahn, who happens to be the guitar player of Arc of Life. So I was the young kid who wasn't allowed into the jam room where they were playing Close to the Edge, because it was not hip to have little Billy hanging out. So I'm around all this music, and I didn't know who Yes was. I was listening to Earth, Wind and Fire and Parliament and funky stuff.
Oh, right. Okay. Mothership stuff.
My
Mothership
ever that I went to was Earth, Wind and Fire in Vegas in the Sahara. It was amazing,
Yeah.
So anyway, I go into the room to see what's up, guys. Mike and Jim are sitting in there listening to this album called Close to the Edge, and I'll never forget. They're like, "Well, with this band, yes, Billy, you've got to hear it. They're the best band ever." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's hear it." And they play me, and all the chaos that is the beautiful chaos that is the intro of Close to the Edge. Now that I understand it, But as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, whatever I was, by the time it reached the end of that section, I looked at Mike and Jim. I'm like, how could you guys even listen to this? It's horrible, right? And so I went on my way, and a couple of weeks later, there they were again in the room, listening to Close to the Edge. I heard that intro kick in, and all of a sudden, it just sounded different to my ears for some reason. And I opened the door, I'm like, and they're like, "Come on in," and I'm sitting there listening, and after that second application, I was like, what else do these guys do? And from that point on, it was, obviously, the story. It's like, as I sit here, I've been a diehard ever since. And it's weird how music hits you.
Well, that, my friend, shows that you are a true listener of music. Okay. And I had this conversation with the first person I ever did one of these interviews with, which is a guy called Fred Abong. And I actually told him prior to the interview, go and listen to this album. Because I knew he would like it, and he'd never heard of it before, which was by a band called Pierre Ubu, and it's an album called New Picnic Time, and it starts with this song called the Mighty Sequel, which just goes, "Hey, yeah, it's me again." It's really bizarre, and it's all cut up, and I listened to that. I was given that album. I told the story to him. I was given that album when I was 11,
Oh, wow.
All right. Because I won a competition on Radio Luxembourg and I was given this album, and because I had it as a gift, I was desperate to like it, but I just couldn't get it. You know, I'd grown up on a sort of rock music of sort of, 70s rock music, but also sort of, Nick Kershaw and Paul Young and people like that. But this was like, oh my God, this was different.
Yeah.
But I just kept persevering, and your ears change. And I think, I honestly believe that people that really love music, they learn to develop an ear, and you learn to develop an ear for how to listen to music, compared with some people that just hear music, but they don't actually listen to it.
I think that also comes down to somehow your brain being able to dissect the music and actually just follow along to the bass part if you want to.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
sort of tune everything out, and or just listen to the guitar part and sort of tune everything out. And I practice that every day in making records and producing records, because to me, part of making a beautiful mix happen is the ability to hear everything that's involved at its right perspective, depth of field, layered, and all that stuff.
Sure.
And so I find myself sitting there as I'm mixing, just focusing in on the kick drum level and how it's impacting the pressure coming out of, and so there are many people, music lovers, mostly your prog fans, really, who have that ability to sort of just key into like what the bass is doing or what the guitar is doing. And that is a different way of listening to music than just the average bear who hears the whole blanket.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Either likes it or doesn't. You know what I mean? It kind of comes down to it in a simple format. And I think the bridge between those two worlds, as you said earlier, it's like the hookiness of things, and even though that might be like a forbidden word in the prog community, but a hooky thing to me is just something cool that you want to hear. You know what I mean? And in the way, again, like the Beach Boys had those melodies and those chunks of vocals that you had to listen to them again and again and again. I mean, certain things just hit you, and you want to feel that connection to it, and you have to listen to it again. I mean, in a weird way, there's an example, for instance, George Jones, country artist, right? He's got this song called The Race Is On, which I only discovered a few years ago because I wasn't really digging into the depths of country, and I discovered this song, and I literally will listen to just that opening. I hear tears welling up cold deep inside, like my heart sprung a big break. And I will listen to just this lyric. How the hell did he do that? That is so cool. And his effort, and the way the vocal is. And so I think when people can develop that ability to dial in, like on that microscopic level, the world of music opens up, and the genres seemingly don't matter anymore to you. To me, there's no real walls between these genres. It's just how you apply the textures that make it feel that way. Yeah. So there are certain parts of art that have a little bit of a country vibe to it, or, a little poppy vibe to it, or more of an alternative feel or a prog thing. It's just a big soup of music at the end of the day, but as long as it feels good. That's the key, I think. It's got to feel,
Billy, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And the good news is, for all of those people that do know how to listen to music, is that they actually find plenty to listen to on this album.
Right on. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the hooky stuff. There's the melody. But as you say, there is the depth too. And that's the pleasure that takes sometimes 2 or 3 listens to get in there, but that's the great thing about it, and it's the thing that I love still about listening to albums as opposed to necessarily just streaming tracks. I don't get that.
Well, and I think too, we live in an age where people have grown used to, especially the younger generation, of like 10 seconds should do it, and if I'm not getting it, I'm off to the next thing. And, my kid's going through a period now where he's discovering, and his ears are really opening up. I mean, he came into me the other day and said, I'm checking out this new tune called what's it called? It looks on his phone. 21st Century Schizoid Man, and I'm like, where'd you find that? He goes, oh, it's in this anime video I like to watch, and it was incredible. So now I'm into it, and so then I pointed him into Red and Lark's Tongue and all that stuff, and you know, it's out there to be discovered for younger people, and I think maybe, you know, this record will help in that you know, application as well. Try to draw some youth into our generational gap here a little bit, you know.
Fine, bring some more people along to both Arc of Life and yes, concerts.
But yeah,
again,
you discover everything by proxy, you know. It's all by
yeah,
proxy. So.
Brilliant. Well, I shall leave you to have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Again,
cheers Captain.
You know,
No.
Next time we do this, we have a 15-minute bonus period.
Yeah. Where we'll have a quiz and you can.
Exactly. We'll do a bonus round.
We'll have to have questions each.
Yes,
so
exactly.
And see who wins. Okay.
Yes. Anytime, man. Anytime.
All right.
Class.
Pleasure talking to you.
Take care.
Thanks,
brother.
Billy. Take
See you, man.
care. Bye for now.
Ciao.